Welcome to the Underdog Sniper Podcast. I'm your host, MGCovers. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 56. A lot to cover in this video. Hope everybody had a great weekend. A lot of fun here in the Dominican. First time ever walking 18 holes where I'm a member at. It's basically a resort course, but not really designed to walk, but actually made it paying the price. My feet hurt, my whole body hurts. So hopefully I can get a massage this afternoon to kind of work that out, but a lot of fun. All right. So in this episode, I'd like to cover, we're going to review April's numbers. We'll show you our profit for April. We'll also talk about year to date. So mention briefly the changes we've made with baseball. I feel confident in the direction we're going in baseball. And then also talk about soccer. I made a video earlier in the week with some changes I made to the soccer model. We're going to make one small tweak to our betting log, and I'm going to show you actually how I did that. And I think somebody that aspires to build models, after you have a significant sample size and you have a data, basically a log tracking all those plays, I'm going to show you how you can take your losses and tweak that to make your log and model even more profitable. So very educational. We'll do that. We'll also look at another service and see how those handicappers have done year to date, because I think it's very important. One thing that's not talked about in this business is what success looks like. If you get on social media, I've said this a million times, the perception is everybody is turning a profit. Everybody's doing extremely well. When in reality, 95% of the people that wager on sports are actually losing money long term. And then we're going to wrap up the podcast. I'm going to talk about a potential soccer sports betting newsletter that I'm going to do, and maybe putting this out into the bettosphere. Maybe some of you guys can offer some suggestions or maybe give you some more insights of what the betting community might want or need from a consumer's perspective. And then maybe I can make adjustments from there. All right, so let's dive into this, and we'll pull up BetStamp, which is what I use to track everything. Okay, and before I show you, we dive into the numbers, I made a tweet about this, and this is very important. You can see up there, I reopened this BetStamp account probably back in the beginning of football season. Said this before, it needs to be stated again. The only way to define success in sports betting is, can you profit long term? It takes no talent to have a winning day, no talent to have a winning month, no talent to have a winning week. The only thing that will define whether or not you can be a sharp or a profitable sports bettor is, can you win long term? And when I say long term, I mean, you can see there at 600 wagers. A normal season for me is probably about 1,000. I feel like we'll go well over 1,000 wagers this year, doing a lot of volume with MLB, and that's up 32.2 units in, what's that, about 7 months, I think, one ROI. So again, only way to define success is in this industry is, can you win long term? And we'll take a peek to last week. I want to talk about this briefly because this is not mentioned as well. And if you're new to the podcast, part of my education platform is you're never going to improve in this industry unless you get educated. The way I started, I bought a bunch of Bob McCune books, who was a sharp back in the 70s, 80s, early 90s. He's since passed, wrote several books. I read those and I've recommended those to a lot of people. That's kind of how I learned the business without any kind of educational platform. Meaning it's the same with golf or any other entity. Without any education, you will never do well in this business. You will fail day in, day out, month in, month out. So you have to be educated first in order to succeed. So a lot of things that I bring to the surface is so that you can become educated. And I'm going to talk about this specifically. You look at last week, our volume for last week was really good. Our average size bet, we're doing a lot of volume with MLB, was $230.38. But then the volume we averaged in 1 week, we wagered roughly $10,000. Had a 7.7 ROI, which is really good, with a net profit for the week of $750. So the point I want to emphasize here is that you have to wager a lot of money in this business in order to make it. That's going to be determined amount of bankroll you have, meaning if you only have access to $1,000, it's going to be difficult to make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. You have to have a significant bankroll in order to make significant money. And let's talk about Billy Walters. Just use him for example. It wasn't like he was, turning 300 units, 400 units of profit and wagering $1,000 a day. He was probably hitting the same as any other sharp, 54%, 55% win percentage, but he was wagering a tremendous amount of dollars per day. $1 million, $2 million profit, or $2 million volume, I'm sorry. And then you calculate the ROI in there, you can see how he was making significant money. And you even look at my example. So instead of, let's say, wagering $10,000, let's say we were wagering $100,000 per week, the same ROI of 7.7%, then our profit would have been 77.50, right? So again, volume is not talked about enough in this industry, and that's going to be predicated on two things: your goal, what you're trying to get out of this, and of course, your access to that money. So if you don't have $10,000, it's going to be hard to wager $10,000 in a week. If you don't have $100,000 for sports betting to wager, it's going to be hard to wager $100,000 in a week. So very important to understand that. And then of course you can calculate your potential based on your bankroll and based on and multiply that times the ROI. Decent ROI would be 5%, even lower than that to some degree. And then you could probably potentially expect, on a monthly basis, ROI creeping up towards 10%, although that's very difficult to sustain long term. But at least this example emphasizes a point: in order to make money in this business, you're going to have to risk, quote, a lot of money in this business. All right, so let's take a look at April here. We actually had a small losing month for April, minus 1241. And this was actually turned out better than I thought. We went in the hole about $2,800 the beginning of April as I was trying to figure out adjustments to make to the model. So we actually recovered some of that near the end of the month. So recapping the month year to date, and I like doing this because this shows a realistic picture. And again, going back to the education premise, a lot of people think a win in sports better, wins month in, month out, and that's generally not true. We had a big month in January, lose a month February, small profit March, small loss in April. And then of course, year to date, and our net is $10,100 through April the 30th. We actually made a little bit more than that with the winning week to start May. And again, the important point to remember is, even 4 months in, the majority of people that wager on sports are already in the hole. And I want to show you this particular account, which I really like, and I would recommend you follow him. This is from, I don't know if I have his name on the screen. It's TR Handicapper Tracker on Twitter. So he tracks this particular service. It's a sports betting service. They have a total of right at 30 handicappers. And this is a very important point to make. And so when you're looking at this screen here, the top handicappers up 13 grand, the worst handicappers in the hole 16 grand. And you can see only a third of these handicappers are profitable. So if you were to put me in the mix with these other handicappers, I would be the second best handicapper at this service. And the best handicapper, of course, up 13,139. You have these guys over here in the hole, minus 4,400, minus 4,700, minus 8,000, minus 9,000. So the point is, even people that are, quote, handicappers, here we are, April 30th, majority are in the red. And once you're down, probably, possible for some of these handicappers to come back, but more than likely, you'll probably see the same type regression. I would say year to date, you'll probably only have maybe 20% of these handicappers are going to be profitable long term. So the point again, very difficult business, very difficult to turn a profit in this business long term. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about soccer. Now, what you're looking at is the soccer log for this past, no, I take that back. This was from April the 25th. Again, we only wagered 1 day of soccer and ended up, that was a negative day, but overall, just tracking the model was profitable, 20 wins, 11 losses, 12.2 units of profit. And then the underdogs were minus 0.62. Now, I want to talk about the changes that I made. I don't want to show the teams over here. I want to focus on the line. So what I did was, let me explain this tracker. So if you're listening to this podcast, you'll understand it. So I took the old model, and then when I was basically forcing myself to handicap soccer every single day, I was handicapping some subjective factors into the model. And I thought, well, what would be great is to combine those two together, which is what I did. So if you see line here, I assigned each team that was playing in soccer a number. Sometimes it was 7, sometimes it was -2. It was a statistical calculation. Then when you see differential, this is basically the team's number difference. So if a team was 7 and then their opponent was a 3, then they would have a differential of 4. What I noticed was teams that were 6 or higher differential wise won at a very high percentage. So if you look here on the right where it says differential, you scroll all the way down, the only plays were teams that had a differential of 6 or higher. Because if it was 5 or lower differential, those teams, they did not have calculating that way, it wasn't profitable, meaning where we saw teams had a greater chance of winning was 6 or higher differential. Now, this is what I want to emphasize here. You always want to do one thing when you're looking at a log is go back and look at your losses. So if you create a log, go back and not necessarily look at the wins, always look at the losses and see if you can see a pattern in the losses. And we're going to do this quickly. So look at not look at the differential, but look at the line. So this was a 3, it was a loss. This was a 2, it was a loss. This was a 5, it was a loss. This was a 6 and a loss. This was a -1 line, a -1 line. Both of those were losses. Next loss was an 8. Scroll down here. We had a 2 that was a loss, a 2 that was a loss, a 1 that was a loss, and then an 8 that was a loss. So hopefully you caught on to that. The lower the number of the line that I was giving these teams, the less likely they are to win. So I'll cut to the chase. So what I did was if the line was 2 or less, I'm going to eliminate that from the log. So let's go through. Now, what you have to do when you go back and do this exercise, if a team won that was 2 or less, you have to take that out of the log as well. So you see here, this is -2. This team was 2. So we'll highlight this so you can see it in red. So we eliminate. So there's 2 matches that we're going to eliminate. And we keep scrolling until we see another one. And here's these 2. Both of these lines were -1. So we'll highlight these in red. So we're not going to count that. Now, this was a 2 that actually won. It was a +210 dog that won. So we have to exclude that as well. Keep scrolling. Here's two more 2s that were losses. And we'll highlight those in red. And we'll go over the numbers here just a second. And then finally, this one here was a 1, and they lost as well. So now watch this. This is really cool. So let's go back and see what the win ratio was of teams where I gave them a line of 2 or less. 1 and 1 here, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 2 and 5, 2 and 6. So you can see that really good observation on my part is that teams 2 or less only won at what, like a 30% rate, 25% rate. So now what I'm going to do, I'll go through this tracker here and we'll take those out. Okay. So you just click delete if you're in Google Sheets, and we'll see what this does to the log. So we only had 2 wins in that. So now we go down to the bottom. So instead of ending up with 12 units, we're up to 15.1 units. And that's basically like 10 days. So in 10 days, this model yielded a total of 15.1 units. And to be honest with you, that's probably on the high side, meaning like, I don't think we can expect this model to profit that well long term, obviously, right? But still super excited about that. Now, let's do this for dogs over here. Just do the same thing because that's really what was hurting us. So we'll eliminate this, these 2 here, this one, and this one. So you can see now underdogs were previously -0.6. We apply this change I made. Now we're at plus 3.28 units. So again, I can't stress this enough to when you're tracking something, even if you're not wagering live or you're conducting a back test, always keep a specific log. You want to calculate, you want to show the line, maybe any other relevant information that you have so that you can compare the losses to your line and then draw a conclusion like I did there. But specifically, you want to look at your losses and see if you can find a pattern in your model, make those changes. And so all I did was, even if it has a differential of 6 or higher, if my line for that particular team is 2 or less, we won't wager on those. And you can see that drastically increased our profit from 12 units all the way up to 15.1 units. Super excited about soccer. And again, soccer is a sport that we can wager on year round. And it's something that I've been grinding at for the past 6 years. And I feel like this probably is the way to go. And I want to show you this newsletter. I don't know if this would work or if we would get a lot of interest from this. I do have clients that specifically, a lot of European clients, a lot of clients, Southeast Asia, and a few in Singapore, specifically just focus on handicapping soccer or just interested in soccer. So I'm thinking about creating a daily soccer newsletter. And just to give you an idea, maybe thinking it will look like this. I sent this out yesterday. And this went 2-3 as is. If we apply the changes that I made, this would have went 2-1. So the plays would have been Lazio, Atalanta, and Cincinnati. So that would have went 2-1. So sending out this. So if somebody subscribes to it, maybe 2 days a week, you would get this for free. And then if you wanted to get access to it every single day, maybe like $20 a month. So very, very inexpensive. But again, just to focus on soccer. So if you're interested in that, or maybe you have an idea for a newsletter, let me know. Maybe even do something for modeling, not sure. But just thought I would just trying to think of different ways to market the my services and also provide some value to the sports betting community. Greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to this week's episode of the Underdog Sniper 56. That's a wrap. Talk to you guys during the week. Peace.